say broadcast is live.
Mhm.
I don't see it
There we
showing up on
go.
YouTube yet.
Yeah, we're live. Hi, Jilly.
Hi, Michelle.
All
Happy
right.
Thanksgiving.
Well, there's a lag all around. There's a lag. Happy
Oh, I see
Thanksgiving
us
to
now.
you
We're on
too,
YouTube. I
or
can see
whatever you
us.
all want called.
I see us on YouTube now.
Well, yeah, happy whatever anybody's doing today. Just so y'all know, like there's a big lag between Jilly and I, like timing between Jill and I, and then there'll be a lag between you all and us. So there's just lots of lagging around today. So we all have to be like patient.
It's Thanksgiving, and we both are in Wi-Fi not good areas, so that's not helping out our situation.
Right? Jill is in on an island and I'm in a swamp. And but hey, modern technology allows us to still be together today.
That is right. And sometimes it just, once we get going, it goes away. So
Yeah,
hopefully it
hopefully
will.
it will. Yeah.
But as we talk
So
over
did you
each
bake
other,
anything? Hey, Jonaside. Yeah, I know. Hi,
hey,
Jonaside. Happy
John
Thanksgiving.
side, happy Thanksgiving, honey. I did not bake. I
So did
really didn't do
you know?
anything because I wasn't going anywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
like, so the year of the pandemic, I had to cook. Everyone, like, because we all had to stay home. I don't enjoy cooking a huge meal
Uh-huh.
like that with timing and like, I just remember sweating. And my poor son, my oldest son in college, had a direct exposure. So he had been quarantining in his room. So when it came time to eat, luckily my house is like open. I had to take out a table and put him in the living room. And I gave him his plate as we sat at the table because he was quarantining. It was like very depressing. Like we could still talk to him, but it was like he was in exile. And I was so tired. I didn't even want to
Right.
eat after all that cooking. I'm like, fuck eating. Like, I just want to go take a nap now, right?
That's the thing with big cooking. Like it isn't that no, I mean like anytime I cook a meal, I'm like, no, seriously, everybody eat. I'm not tomorrow. It's just how it is when you're the
That
cook. I think
it
John
is
is
that way.
cooking. That's the secret. It is that way. But I enjoy it the next day and I like to cook, but those big meals, it's all timing. Like you said, it's all timing and like you got to
Timing
know
in the
that stuff. Otherwise, I'm cold.
like my aunt so my Italian aunt that I used to go to her house, she had it down to a science,
Hmm.
which where it would actually be done early sometimes because that's who she was. But she
Yeah.
always managed to pull it off perfectly. I like when I make so I know how to do two Italian things. I can make sauce and one type of Italian cookie. When I make sauce, it's like a 3 hour process. I don't want any of it. And it's always better the next day. My family can't
Right.
wait. They're like, like vultures. And I'm just like, by the time I clean up, I'm like, I want nothing but a cookie and and a nap. I didn't inherit
Hmm.
these like genes that like my mom had and my family with cooking and stuff like that. I don't know. It just skipped me for some reason. Who
I
knows?
like to do it. I don't know how I would feel if it was expected of me though. Like, like I do it on my own time, or whatever. But I still like it's not as good until the next day. And I didn't realize that till I was grown. Like my grandma would be like that. She'd be like, eat, and down and like ordering her or get her to eat the food. And it was like, oh, leave her alone. She doesn't want to eat right now. But I didn't understand until I was older that why. And she would
Yeah.
always like after the meal what she liked to do. And then like after a little while, what she liked to do on the day that she cooked something was she was big into like running the bread she made. She made these delicious buns and she'd run it through
Ooh.
the turkey, like the grease, whatever meat grease, and she would like to eat that. And then like the next day, I think she ate her own food. But I can remember being a kid and being like, "Don't order her around. She's cooked all that food for you. She doesn't have to eat it if she doesn't want to."
I mean, when I was a kid, like I went to my grandmother's every Sunday for dinner. And back in those days when my great grandmother was alive, like the house was split up into three. Like my grandmother had part, my great grandmother lived in the middle, then my other aunt who had 7 kids. And the house was packed every Sunday. And I'm like, how did these women, like, granted, there was a lot of people to help up with cleaning up, but I'm like, how did they do this every single friggin' Sunday, except for when my grandmother went to Florida? I'm like, I just couldn't imagine doing that. And even Jared's grandmother, she used to cook religiously every Sunday. Not anymore because she's older, but I'm like, I don't know how people do this. I couldn't do it.
No, my grandma did too. She made fried chicken every Sunday, which I couldn't even imagine. And then, like, for whatever reason, honestly, never did like fried chicken. Even when I was a kid, I didn't like it, and I still don't like it, which is weird. But she would make me a hamburger because I did fried chicken. I don't know why. I mean, I like chicken. I like fried things. When you to get, I don't like it. So, but yeah, it was so sweet. And I think back to that, and I'm like, God, she even made me like something different, you know.
I'm a picky eater.
I don't know.
In general, my grandmother, I went through a phase where my grandmother, like my grandmother didn't have she just threw everything in. I mean, I can still see her eating pig knuckles that were in the friggin' sauce. But I went through this phase where I didn't like her sauce because there was things in it. And it was like garlic and basil. I used to have it all around the edge of my plate. So they would let me have it with butter first and wait to add the sauce until I got my portion. And every Saturday they made breaded steak. That was like what they ate every Saturday was breaded steak. I don't like red meat. I have never liked red meat my entire life. So if we were sleeping over there, I remember my mom would send SpaghettiOs for me. And I'll never forget it because like she's heating it up and she's saying like because where my great grandmother's house was at the time, there was a window. And they used to pass food through it. I used to crawl through it as a kid. So she's yelling through it. Can you believe this? I'm heating up this crap for her and stuff. And then I caught her tasting it and going, oh, it's not bad. And I caught her. And she used to say that. I'm like, Grandma, I saw you try it one time and you said it wasn't that bad. And she's like, no, I didn't. Like it was so funny. She totally denied it. But I didn't like bread. And I still don't like. I've never been a red meat person ever in my life. Like it wasn't even like something as a kid being rebellious. It's just like still today, you'll never see me eat a hamburger. I'm weird.
I get it. And you'll never see me eat fried chicken. Like I wasn't making it up and it didn't change. But I think that's hilarious. So I love that story of Italian grandma being like, I'm heating up SpaghettiOs.
And they weren't actually that bad when she tasted it to see how warm they were. And I caught her. It was brilliant. And she would my grandmother was a character. My Italian grandmother was a character. We're definitely like I joked that we're the cold Italians. Like in my sect of the family, like you see Italians and you think, oh, hugging, kissing. No, we were the cold Italians. And that me and one of my so I'm hungry and want chicken and steak. Thanks. Sorry, John aside. Hopefully you'll get turkey. But it was always a joke that we were the cold Italians. But my grandmother was very loyal. Like it was so if you were blood, meaning like a relative, she'd do anything. So my uncle coined this term, we're just paper, we don't matter. So meaning like if you were married, if you were a spouse, you were just paper. You didn't matter because you weren't blood. And that has stuck. And it's not that she didn't care, but it's like if you were paper, forget it. It was like her blood relatives were the thing. But she I'll never forget this. And I didn't get it at the time. Like my mom was not religious, but my grandmother was very much a devoted Catholic. I mean, she had a whole altar to the Virgin Mother that she kissed her feet every night. So she was the one that brought me. I think I told you how I used to have to go to church on Saturdays at 4. So she was the one that brought me to Sunday school and all that stuff. So when I was receiving first communion, so my grandmother had 10 brothers and sisters. One of her brothers worked in Boston at a place called Priscilla's, which is a very well-known wedding dress place in Boston. Like it is like top line. So I had an uncle that worked there. So my grandmother got my first communion dress from Priscilla's, cut the tags out and told everyone she made it, My mother was so pissed. Because here it is. I got this first communion dress from this prestigious store. My grandmother cut all the fucking tags out and told everyone she made it. She was a character. My mom was so mad. She was so mad. I'll later on. I'll text you a picture of myself in my very holy first communion dress with like no teeth because I'm in like second or third grade, so I have like the pumpkin teeth because I'd lost a bunch and stuff. But yeah, my grandmother was a character, but we were definitely the cold Italians. She was not warm and fuzzy, but loyal and caring. She would do anything for you if you were blood. Paper, you know, you'd get forgiveness.
But sometimes you gotta support the paper too, because the paper supports the blood, right?
Well, she did. Like when my uncle had a stroke, they were there to, her and my grandfather helped out. And not that I want to air all my family business, my uncle had cheated on my aunt, her daughter. And my grandmother forgave him. And then he had a stroke a few years later, talk about some karma. And they were there to support my aunt. So there was forgiveness, but when it came down to it, like it was just always a joke. She could cut through your soul with a look. Like that's how like she could be that. Oh my God. And I was the oldest and I was the oldest girl. So I got a lot of shit. That's what comes in an Italian family. If you are the oldest and a girl, you have more expectations than, say, my brother, who's the baby. He's the baby. He was treated like a king. That's why my dad is the way he is. He's the baby, but I'm the oldest, so I got the shit. But I did inherit her wedding band though, because there's the perks too, because I got her wedding band when she died, which is it's diamonds and emeralds, and as the oldest, it was like my birthright. So there's perks for me because I love jewelry.
I see. You got the diamonds and the emeralds and all the shit too.
Well, that I earned that ring.
Yeah. Well, I made cranberry pies as the baby of the family too. I don't know if he's Italian though. But I made 3 cranberry pies, which is also really funny because I learned to bake from my very highly intelligent but semi-literate Southern women in my family, right? So like,
yeah,
they didn't use recipes because they didn't really. I mean, they were very smart, but they were like taken out of school, when they were really young or whatever. So they didn't whatever. They didn't use recipes. But what's so funny is every time like I bake and like, a lot of things I bake without, because that's how I was taught. But like on top of it, and I think about the Celtic Viking.
Yeah.
And my bake, when I'm making my I got it in the bowl and like I know how to do it. I don't need any measurements, or whatever. I know how to make that pie gel up. I don't need any measurements. I don't need any of that. But what I always think of is you ask my granny, my aunt, like, this is delicious. Can I get a recipe? Like they had like an act for it. I mean, like they would humiliate you like an inch of your life. They'd be like, a recipe where you make pie. Did you hear this? You make pie. She wants a recipe for the pie. Just make pie.
They shamed you. Oh my God, they shamed you.
Pie. So, like,
I love that they shamed you.
Shame the fuck out of you if you ask for a recipe. So every time I'm making my pie, I'm like, every time I'm making my crust and stuff, I think about that. It's pie. They asking me for a recipe for pie. It's pie. Just make pie. And I'm like, I'm just making the pie. I'm just doing it. I didn't crack. I didn't crack a recipe book. I use recipes for other things, but not as much for baking because
you were shamed not to.
Like they're the ones that taught me to bake. Yeah, right? Or I saw them shame other people. Like I watched that as a young child and I was just like, you better learn to make them crust or whatever. And then
you better stop watching and memorizing. My grandmother never used like my mom
Yeah.
had tried to watch
I
my grandmother make
know.
sauce. It was different every time, but I will say I'm a
Uh-huh.
I need a recipe. Like I like when they're
Yeah.
like, oh, a pinch of this. I'm like, so
Hi,
a pinch,
Jasmine.
half teaspoon. There's a few things that I can do, like my Italian cookies that I
Oh
make. The
my God.
recipe is so easy. I have it memorized at this
Right.
point.
Oh, I can measure in my palm. I can measure like your teaspoons, quarter teaspoons, half teaspoons. I can eye a cup, half a cup. Like I just learned all
Oh,
that stuff from the time they had me perched on the counter teaching me to cook, like when I was a kid. But I do use recipes for a lot because my mom went vegan, you know that, and I had to learn vegan
mm-hmm.
cooking, and I can't do vegan cooking without a recipe. And I like to, learn new things from a recipe. But I can cook a lot of food without looking at a single word. That's for sure. I could definitely make you a full Southern meal
Yeah.
without cracking a cook.
Well, I'll hold you to that when I get to come visit you. I can do
Yeah,
some stuff
no.
like
I'll make you
without.
a spread. I can make it blindfolded as long as it's that good old Southern food.
I'll make you sauce and meatballs, and you can make me Southern food. And someone told me once that when it
Okay.
came to cooking, when it came to spices, you're supposed to wait for your ancestors to tell you to stop. In other words, like you'll hear it, like they'll guide you. Like you're supposed to wait till you hear like that's enough or something. I actually have my mom's
Yeah.
recipes when she passed away. And I still regret this. Some things I never went back to the house to get, but I did take her box of recipes that is still a Rice Krispie box from back in the day when you would get cereal and send in the UPS codes and you got stuff. And I have her original recipe for these cookies she made. Luckily, it's a recipe. Like my mom could make apple pie without a recipe. I tried watching her one time. I'm like, how many things about it did you just use? But I have like her fudge recipe and stuff. And I did that more like,
Mm.
my brother, my brother, I don't like fudges. I don't love it. It's too much for me, but my brother loves it. So the first year she was gone, I made her fudge. It didn't come out as good, but I wanted to try to keep something up. And I always regret I never got her potato salad. And she didn't use a recipe. Her potato salad was my favorite. And I know some of the ingredients, but not enough. I'm screwed. You're frozen. Are you frozen or am I frozen, Michelle? Oh, so John said when it comes to garlic, you double it. Can you double it again? He's like my grandmother.
Okay, we're back.
We're
What's
back.
funny
Sorry.
about spices, and even though like I was taught by like Southern women, they're not. Yeah, we're back. They're not, the Southern women are not Southern enough to be into like hot sauce and spices and stuff like that. They're like Southern Midwest, like Southern Missouri's where, I mean, they have a Southern accent, right? And they eat all that Southern food, but it's like not spicy like it is in Louisiana. And so
Yeah.
like when it comes to spice, they're like spices, it's salt and pepper and butter and bacon grease. That's what you that's spices. That's your spice. Those are the spices.
Wow. I have like a whole cabinet full that I had to buy like something for one recipe. And so it's like and Danny had gone through a phase because Danny traveled a lot. Like he was in the South, like he got to have real barbecue. So we had like all these weird rubs, and he went through a whole Spanish phase at one time. Danny's cooking has gotten better, but I still am wary. Let's just say, because like he made something one day, and I'm like, "Did you add garlic to this?" Because like I'm like, "You don't need it." I'm like, "I already had enough garlic." It's like there's an Italian bakery in Gloucester that they jar up their sauce, and you can buy it in the grocery store. I'm like, "You don't need any more." Virgilio's puts plenty garlic in that, but he adds more. Like he's come a long way. He grills better than I do.
That John said, whatever the garlic is, you got to double it and triple it. And hey, Osman, if you didn't hear me say hi, it's nice to see you here today. But yeah, I guess John's side would be adding that garlic too. I pretty much agree with you. Hey, CW.
Hey,
good to
CW.
see you. Happy Thanksgiving. Nice to have
Happy
you
Thanksgiving.
there. We're just hanging out talking about pie.
Food.
Yeah, well, I made 3 cranberry pies, and what I did this time is I didn't put the spice in the actual gel in the pie. I put the pumpkin spice, I rubbed it on my hands like this, and I just dropped it on the crust. And I gotta tell you, I love that. I'm gonna keep doing that. And maybe that was ancestrally. They did have cinnamon. But maybe that was ancestrally guided.
It could have been. It was like
But
that.
anyway,
Needed.
Yep, like that's what, yeah, because I definitely was not measuring it,
No.
But yeah, so it's so good to like have to be here and talking with you today on this day.
Yeah.
So you got
So CW is only
got a
responsible
few
for eating pie, and that's a good responsibility to have. CW, I'm with you.
good responsibility. Me too, kind of today, and I got 3 of them. I don't know if I'm giving any of them away, so I might just be eating them by
So
myself.
the only thing I've cooked since I had surgery was in my air fryer. I cooked kielbasa and hot dogs last weekend in my air fryer. And I was gonna do
Oh,
bacon, but after those 2, I was already done. My energy was tapped. Me and Cam were home alone. I'm like, so I need to feed this child. What's the easiest thing I can do? And that's literally the only thing I've
hot dog.
cooked except for heating up soup, because I know people are gonna be so bummed when they hear they're not getting cookies this year. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, there's time. So tell us, so you got this Oracle deck. So talk about the Oracle deck a little bit, because you had something you said about it to me before we came on.
Well, and actually, Jonathan is the one who made me think of it. Who we were talking about tarot and oracle decks, and what are the differences, and how some people call things, a angel or an oracle tarot deck. And so there's the one I got, his name, and I'm not gonna be able to say it right because I cannot say words. I swear to God. He's like, if you ever looked at Hay House, who was like one of the first publishers, they're the ones that made Doreen Virtue huge. His name is Rajleen Valentine. He created the deck, and I actually got the book that goes along with his. So he calls this an angel tarot deck. Now he kept the major arcanas, but replaced some with angels. And like 0 instead of the Fool is called the Dreamer. The illustrations are beautiful, but when I first got this, it was like, oh my God, way too much. I didn't have enough experience or had worked with enough decks to be like, I couldn't understand anything. I'm like, too much. The illustrations are beautiful. I don't know what any of this means. It was like overload. Then after a year, I picked it up again and I found I could use it. I haven't really used these. I have found people that take tarot and try to make an angel, or like I do like the John Holland psychic tarot deck, but I don't look at it as a tarot deck. It's like an oracle deck to me. But it's like, they changed the pip cards. So it's like, you got to figure out like, so what does water mean? And what does air mean? Fire. But like for earth, uses fairies and unicorns, which I thought was really cool. Like the cards are really pretty. Like, so this is 5 of earth.
And
so
nice. Wait, put that up again. 5 of earth. Sylvia Brown. That's who you're talking about, CW. Home of that Montel Williams psychic lady, Hay House. Yeah. Oh, they published Teal Swan too. Yeah.
It's funny because Hay House made a lot of people famous. So it's funny when I first learning, Doreen Virtue was the one that had the most oracle. Like if you're looking for an angel oracle deck, she was the one. And I remember I bought 2 of hers and I found her on YouTube, and she had denounced everything she did. It was demonic. She went way like Christianity, nuts. Like she went to the other side. And I was like, what the hell is this? So she actually
I'm sorry, she's chasing money. She's chasing money.
She is.
She made as much money as she could on tarot.
And she also she was the first person to offer classes to certify people. And to say she was channeling the devil the whole time, it's like, because she actually put out a new deck, I believe. but all of her decks always had an underlying Christianity theme, but a couple of them are like my go-tos, like her life purpose deck that I have. I use that all the time for people with readings. Oh my God. So Sylvia Brown, she is dead, but
Yeah.
she's the one that I don't like her because she's the one that said one of the kidnapped victims was dead and she was actually alive. That was on live TV.
Oh,
The girl
ouch.
confronted her.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know, Sylvia Brown was so funny to me. Like, she was quite an entertainer. She really was. And so, like, to that degree, I had always appreciated her. I didn't know about that though. That stuff's too
yeah, like
heavy.
she
You can't run like
was
you need
famous.
to be like, I don't know.
I would never try to predict something like that to say if a lost child was dead or alive. Like, I would never ever, like, I just think
Nope.
you got to have some integrity with that sort of stuff. Like, you can't tell someone that. And I do know there's been like psychics that have helped solve cases. And I believe that is true, but it's not dead or alive. It's like helping them get to wherever the person or the weapon is. That's different. The other one, funny enough, too, I'm going to give Stephen Camp
doing it on TV. Like,
that's just it. Like,
you're
on
not
TV.
doing it on TV. Like, the cops, you know, the cops come to you and you have a conversation with them. You're really just like, and like, cops use psychics more than people might think, but not
They
to
do.
get this, like, it's in this building and they're dead or alive. It's like it's more of a way to like open up the detective's mind to new questions.
They're blocked.
And that's
they don't
really
know where
why
to go next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just a way of like talking through what they do what they're trained to do. So like getting on TV and being like, the child is dead, the child is alive is like you're kind of sick in your, like, you're just a sick asshole, honestly. But I think that about Doreen Virtue too. I think she made all the money she could make on tarot. It was done. She couldn't bring in any more money from that. And she's like, oh, but look, if I denounce it, I'll have a whole different audience and I'll be able to pull in money from
she
that.
does.
People, that's what I think, you know. And I did kind of like Sylvia Brown just because she cracked me up, but I didn't know.
Yeah, she was a cat. She was a
cat.
She was an entertainer. At the end of the day, Sylvia Brown was like an entertainer. And supposedly in one of her books, she predicted the pandemic. Anyone could have predicted the pandemic, that something was going to happen. Because I heard people referencing her book like she was the source of truth. I'm like, seriously, guys, did you ever Google her and watch the girl confront her? And that was the other thing. Sylvia Brown is talking to the girl who she told everyone was dead. She didn't even know it until the girl said, oh, I'm that person. Telling people,
oh my God.
It was bad. And the other one, and I'm going to give Stephen Campion
fallout.
Seriously, on national TV.
I'm not good.
I can't remember what Sylvia Brown used as an excuse, but it was so cringe. And I'm actually going to give Stephen Campion credit for this one. So James Van Prague, I actually do have two of his decks that I like. But Stephen had done a series a while ago on famous psychics, right? Ones that are on TV all the time. And he did James Van Prague. And after watching what he found in his research, I was like, holy shit, he is a fake. Like, I totally because I know Stephen does his due diligence. I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I listened to this. Because the two decks that I have from him, one of them's like Soul Journey, Soul Lesson. But I had at one time too, before this, during the pandemic, a lot of people were just like, you could sign up for $25 and do a class or this. And James Van Prague had one. So I decided to join. And I remember I didn't get the link. And my friend's like, you're not supposed to be there. I'm like, no, it's fine. It was horrible. It was the worst. Like, it was so scattered. If he picked someone, he started off with like your birth. It was just this big energy mess, chaos bullshit. I was like, never again. So I won't buy anything of his. And I actually unsubscribed from I don't follow him on Facebook anymore because he I don't think he was an actor. He started out as an actor, I guess. It's fine. I really,
Mm-hmm.
I've
I
always
just
believed. I'm sorry, you go.
all of this is like all of this is more subtle than like what can be on like television. It's why like I don't like ghost hunting shows. Like ghost hunting's actually
Mhm.
really boring. And so like anybody who's making it exciting is lying about it, and like,
It's editing.
making these predictions. It's all yeah, it's all editing and like half the time there's one guy that's like, come on, take me on, or whatever. But even like psychic stuff, like it's more subtle than that. And it's more about, for me, it's always more about having conversations with people about really deep things that are going on with us psychologically. Like it's just so much more subtle
Hmm.
than something like what I do for practice would not be make a very good television show. It's like what I talk about with my clients. I'm like we're talking about like your abused childhood. We're talking about how you're going to
Yeah.
communicate better in your marriage. I mean, the
Well,
juiciness of it would be interesting, but like the spirit aspect of it's not that interesting.
and I've always said that too. Like when I do,
I knew
like
what you were meant.
when I've done Facebook Lives or any readings that were live with like tons of people watching, I have always said I
Mm-hmm.
censor the reading for one thing. Like, because like if you get me going, I can just stop. I'll stop pulling cards from everywhere. But I keep it because it's like this is public. I don't want to put super personal details out there for everyone. That's like part of like my integrity. Like I'm not going to air someone's business over YouTube or Facebook. So that's why I always give like the disclosure. This is quick one card message. And if they like the message, book it. You can just, schedule time with me. We'll go deeper. But I would never, because I've had, I'll never forget one. My a good friend of mine, unfortunately, lost her husband. My God, it'll be 3 years next in January, and everyone knew her. So I had brought my cards, like we were all at her house and all that stuff. And just to break things up, like some of her son and one of their friends and someone else, they're like, "Oh, Jill just," I'm like, "Oh, he was doing readings just to kind of like, make it light or whatever." But this one, I predict the missing is her coin toss, right? Heads or tails, CW. And it
True.
was like really cool at first. Then I got to my friend's daughter, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" So now I'm whispering to her because, like, I was having them just come into the living room alone, anyways, and left it up to them if they wanted someone there. But then my friend's daughter, I'm like, "Shit!" I'm like whispering to her, "Okay, just so you know, you don't have to listen to what your mother's saying. If you want to go, like, it was all about like her choices for college and life." I was like, ugh, I didn't want it to get like this. I was like whispering to her so that no one else would hear what came through. So I always am mindful of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got to be. I don't know. So Sylvia Brown was a producer. I didn't know that. I
Hmm.
believe it. I mean, she was definitely entertaining, but it was like it was over the top. I predict wars and rumors. Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the other thing with predictions: predicting a plague, predicting a war. Like you're like the economy is gonna, inflation is gonna happen. You're like, oh my god, how did you know?
Shut
I
up.
believe
No
you. Yeah,
way.
we believe.
You know when I've gotten a
Stop
few friends,
inflation. No way.
I
And
have
there's going
had
to
a
be a
few people.
president that half the country doesn't like. Like, oh my God, you're
Yes.
kidding. How is that
There's
possible?
gonna be a drought. It's gonna be there's so many like we could predict the end of the world right now. You and I, Michelle, we could say it's gonna end. And guess what? It might end. The woman.
Oh
Yes,
my
I know
God.
that
The
CW.
woman
Yeah, it
died.
was horrible because I
I did
read
not
the
know
girl's
that. The woman
I
died.
read the
The
girl's
child was
I
dead,
listened to
but the child was later found.
yeah, the mother was destroyed. I actually listened to the audiobook of this girl of her survivor story, and it tore her mother apart. And yeah, and she trusted that. That's the thing. People put so much trust into people that they can say. I don't ever call myself psychic. I just think it has a bad connotation now these days. And it's like you can't put that much faith into a person. And you know what I've gotten a bunch of times too, recently. So like even my Italian aunt who's Catholic, they know, people know I do readings and stuff. And I've had a couple people say to me, why didn't you like ask about this? How did you not know you were going to get this sick this year and almost die? I'm like, it doesn't work that way. They're not going to tell me. Like, Spirit's not going to come to me and say, hey, Jill, guess what? In March, you're going to become septic and almost die. Get ready for that. They don't tell you shit like that. We have free will. It's like
Yeah.
after I was sick, one of my friends did a quick one. It was about taking care of myself, but it wasn't going to tell me, oh, guess what? In 6 months, it's going to come back and you're going to have surgery. And I try to explain to people, it doesn't work like that. My Nana when she's come through has always said, I wish I can give you the winning lottery numbers, but I can't. They can't interfere with your life's course and the choices you make. I've gotten warnings for people. There's someone I did a reading for that in August. Something with his heart came up, and I was like, "When's the last time you've been to the doctors?" And he ended up passing away from heart failure 6 years ago, 6 months later. So they didn't tell me that he was going to die. It was just like a, hey, you might want to go to the doctors type thing. And it was his choice to go or not. It's like, they don't tell you that's not the way this works. Like, don't you wish I knew I was going to be this sick and could have prevented it?
I know. Well, I mean, nothing, I don't know. It doesn't, people watch television and then really think it should be like that. I mean, I feel like that's true with like, well, like that's what they think about like cops and lawyers too, is that it's all like television, and it's not. Life is not really like television at all. Hey, kids, good to see you. Why
don't we wish?
I know, CW. Why am I talking about childhood?
That's why
people.
I know. I've only
crazy.
gone to one wasn't even a big group reading. I will say I do like John Holland. To look at like say famous, like I don't like the Long Island Medium. I cannot stand the Tyler the Kid that knew nothing about the Kardashians when he went to go read for them. Okay. But John Holland, I really do like. And yeah, oh my God, Tyler something. He was on E! Watch it. It's so cringe. You'll die. But
I've watched some of that. Yeah.
So John Holland, though, I saw him and it was only a crowd of like 40 people. Like there was 40 people. And there was another medium. And his message, which I really liked, he said, even if you don't get a message today, you're going to get the postcard, meaning like there's something in it regardless. Like even if you don't get called up. And one of the people that got picked, he had a weird bird that had just died. There's no way John Holland could have known that. Like it wasn't something you could Google. And my friend that convinced me to go, I remember her saying, everyone I bring get a reading. And Jill, I trusted you. Sorry, CW. And so my mom, this is kind of funny. I don't smoke weed, but my mom did a lot, especially towards the end of her life to help with pain because she had really bad colitis. I remember when she came to my house after a surgery and I got the bag of drugs, I opened it up and went, oh my God, I'm high just from smell. I had to hide it because like my kids were younger. It was that potent. So I would smell weed. That's how I would know she would be around me because I'd be home alone in the house and be like, how am I smelling weed? I don't like, it's her. So I remember being there with my friend for John Holland and I could smell weed. And I looked at my friend and I said, I'm not getting a reading. She's like, yes, you are. I'm like, no, I'm not. I said, my mom's here. I said, there are people in this room that this is the only opportunity that they'll ever get to talk to a loved one. I have plenty of connections. My mom is telling me she's here, but I'm not going to get called. And I didn't. And I knew I wasn't because a lot of people end up at those places because they get dragged there. So think about it, spirits like fighting over each other to get out a message. I'm like, no, I'm not on the chain. I said, they know I can go talk to my friends. I got one of my friends could get me messages from my mom. I said, this is more for people that need it and it's not me. And she didn't believe me till the end. I'm like, told you, not getting called.
So I'm interested.
No, and I was okay with that.
So I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested in your oracle.
Say that again.
Deck.
You froze.
What's going on? Tell me about this oracle deck.
Which
your
one do you want to
oracle
look? Do you
deck.
want
I'm interested in hearing about the. I don't know.
which
Whichever one you
oracle?
want
I
to
have a
pull out.
ton of oracle decks. Looking. So
Well,
I
you
actually
mentioned
go my
one
hold on.
before.
Was it the John Holland
Yeah.
one?
Sorry about all
So
the
yeah,
lags,
his.
everybody.
I know. So this is
So,
his, the Psychic Tarot, which I just wish he didn't call it tarot because it's really not tarot. But especially if you are new,
okay.
his the illustrations and the numbering and it's very easy to when you're just getting familiar with card readings. It's a good deck to work with. And I actually have three others from him too. I'm just looking behind me because that's where a bunch of them are. But this one is the one that I like. It's his Psychic Tarot one. And I actually have done some of his calls. He was really good at the pandemic. He said people kept asking him, John, you're going to say something. And I had signed up and he said, I'm human. I needed to process this myself before I could come. So like, I really like his honesty with the way he does stuff. And a lot of what he talks about just resonates with me. I'm still just not a big fan of the big crowds. I know he did one or two specials with the other John. John, not John Hall. What the hell's his last name? I can't remember. He's kind of big and I think he's a fake. But that's just me.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. I'm
Well,
John
draw a card for
Edwards.
me.
I am. John Edwards. That was the other guy.
Draw
Ooh,
one
I
for
got a
me.
jumper. I just
Okay.
got a jumper. Huh. That's interesting. Hold on. I need another one. So I actually got a few people. All my family's gone. I'm home alone and I'm so happy. Isn't that so sad? So your jumper was
Jill's family just left. She's trying to put out the door.
I would trust me. I was like, people like, what are you doing? I'm like, being home alone, and I am okay with that. So your jumper was Triumph number 7. So this would be what he would call a major arcana card. And then I got number 1, Triumphant Success. And
they go
I know
together.
It's so hard to see the cards. So when you look at them, like
really
when I look
pretty,
at these, the first thing they are, and that's what I like about it, because the illustrations are pretty. There's not too much, but there's enough. So like when I look at this, like for you, number 1 jumps out at me: new beginnings, new projects, new something. And whatever it's gonna be, you're gonna succeed. The sword is coming out of like the ground, like kind of feels like triumph, right? You're gonna rise, my head's tingling now, rise above. And I love the purple in the card because the healing is going to come with this. Whatever you're putting out there is going to heal something from your past. So it's like this new endeavor. It's going to be like letting go and moving forward, and you're going to be triumphant. I don't love the guy on it. There's some cards. There's like the illustrations of the guys. I'm like, ew, I don't like that. But
there's
to me,
a red
it's
flag
just,
on it too. I'm gonna have red flags all over me. I'm a red flag.
And number 7 to me is always like, and I always look at 7s as like choices and decisions. It's like, so you're going to just make all the right choices and you're just riding. Like when I look at this, I just see like you flying through, like you are just, kicking ass, taking no name. You're just killing it. So whatever the project is that you're working on or the idea that's festering, it's good. It's going to be so good for you. And it's like when I see the sword coming from the ground, it's almost like you're coming out of the darkness into the light is what I'm feeling too. And you're just slaying with the sword. You're like, fuck everyone and fuck you, because I am coming. I am here and I'm going to succeed. That's kind of like how I feel. And we were talking about the underworld the other day, remember? So you're coming up from the underworld, right? So yeah, that's like this is I love that. I do recommend this deck for anyone that's wants to learn. I think it's a pretty cool one. And then he always does the chakra cards. And like if you know, not everyone likes chakras or buys into them, but he always includes all 7 of them. So if I had pulled
Okay.
this, I would have been like, oh, your root chakra is blocked. Like that's pretty much what you get out of that. And this
Oh,
card I
okay.
used, and this card I used to
Let me
pull a
jump
lot,
in
which
here
I,
for a second.
yeah. Ooh,
Yeah. So like to like reading. This is hey spooky. This is definitely like having conversations and getting support like this, is a bit of like what happens in meetings. Like we're just talking about life. We're just talking about like I mean, people, you're always going into something new and you're always like, but talking to Jill and getting this like energetic support for it, getting this like energy from the card, just having this conversation, having like being with people in this way, is like such an important part of, I feel like, for what readings are really about. It's really about this way to like talk about your life and talk about being a person and to get that support and that input from another person who's having human life and is familiar with what these things feel like. Anyway, I wanted to put that out there. Please continue because I love the attention, because like we all need attention. Everybody needs to have attention on themselves.
you know what?
So
I
please
I think the
continue.
most rewarding, like when I know someone, and people will be like, "Well, you know me, so of course you can." And that's not always the case because there's been. I remember I had to do it when I did one of my classes, my certifications. We had to do it like a final exam. It was we got to invite someone for a free reading. My mentor watched it, and it wasn't like I was going to fail or anything. And I picked a mentor of mine from my professional world, whose name happens to be Jill, and when I tapped into her, I was so surprised at what I felt because it wasn't what I expected. So that's like a misconception. People think because you know someone, oh, it's easy to read them. It's not always the case because what's inside of them, you might not know. I that was an eye opener for me. But I think the greatest satisfaction for me too is like if I don't know someone and I do a reading and I end up being right, I'm always like, yes, because I'm sweating some bullets here, hoping this all makes sense. And then
Yeah,
when they give you the confirmation, there's nothing better. Like, oh, you always feel that relief, like, oh, thank God. And I always tell
right.
people if I'm going down the wrong path, tell me, like, because maybe I just need to dig in deeper. Like, and I always remind people too, if it doesn't make sense now, think about it. In a week, it might. And that typically happens. This is one of my favorite cards from this deck, and it's Firm Foundation. And I always liked it because it highlights your root chakra, which is where you hold all of your strength, your wisdom, your ancestral stuff that has been passed down. And I always, whenever I pull this card, it always was like reminding me, like, life might be shitty, but you've got the foundation, like you're supported, like you're strong. And I always liked, I feel like for a while I was pulling this card a lot for something I was going through. So this was always one of my favorites when I used to see, and he's got a nice back, but that's not important. Oh, see, I'm so glad that
You see
some of my friends
that.
came today.
Me too.
So, like,
It's great to see you all.
my first oracle, so my deck I learned on, this is my go-to. It's the Energy Oracle deck. And like the box is beaten and broken up. This is the first one I ever learned on. And when I talked about, when I said like certain illustrations of guys, I was like, what the hell? I remember because like the exercises was you had to pull a card and you would journal about it and all that stuff. And
Right.
when I pulled this card, I got the worst. And I remember going to the group and being like, have you ever felt this way when you pulled a card? Like, ew. So this guy, right? I was like, ew, I don't like him. Like he's creepy to me. And
What?
I was like, I don't know. I don't like
What is that guy?
a man holding a heart. I was like, I don't like it. And I remember asking my friends, and they're like, what's making you uncomfortable about it? What don't you like? I was like, oh, I don't know. Let me journal about it. I just think he looks creepy. And like it, that's like usually represents a potential romance because the man's holding his heart. But I felt like they went to Fabio, like trying to make him like a romance cover. And I think that's why I don't like it, because that's not my kind of guy. But he's got hearts all around. So he has his heart in his sleeve. Like that's what it represents, is like the potential. And then the other one, this is the other creepy guy I don't like, man holding a coin. This guy represents like a mentor coming into your life, or a teacher. And I was like, oh, I still don't like it. I'm like, and this was like 4 years ago, but that first, I was like, ick. And my friends were like, so why though? So there's something in that card that's bothering you. What is it? That's what you got to dig into. I was like, oh shit. So that's just like where the illustrations do help, or can be a determinant.
Yeah,
I guess.
right. No, I like to feel at one with the illustrations on the deck myself. And with the philosophy behind the deck. Like there's some decks I think are really beautiful, and I'm like, that person though, I cannot. And then other decks that I'm like, I love the person and I don't love the deck so much. But I am shuffling the Modern Witch Tarot deck and I'm pulling a card for Spooky on current. How did she put it? On current happenings.
Oh, so current happenings. Yes, Spooky, so, you have that, because I think I sent it to you.
Okay, I have one deck, the card that jumped out, and I'm gonna pull out a backup card, and this is Spooky still. So let's see, because it's like I'm gonna pull up a backup card on that. Okay, so here's what I got. First of all, I get the Death card. And then secondly, I get, when I pull a backup on it, I get this Three of Cups, which I love this deck. But there's that Three of Cups. And there's, I guess you can kind of see the cards better if I do that. The Death card is really like, whatever's going on, right? Like you come out the other side changed, kind of like fundamentally, like something about yourself, you wind up changing it. Whether you like what's going on as a current happening, or you don't like it, or it's neutral, it creates this transformation for yourself. I mean, the change that happens in the Death card is like, it's like a suit, like it's not just like material, that's like getting a new car or a new apartment or a new job. It's not like that. It's like, even though those things can be a big deal, they certainly are a big deal and can change your life, they don't necessarily change fundamentally who you are or how you operate. But something's going on right now, where when you come out the other side of it, you're like, oh, I've really changed some things about my thinking. I've changed some things about myself, and probably really much for the better, because you also are going to have a lot of, how do I want to say this? Like, you're going to have a lot of ability to like be objective about that change and have that bust in some ways. You choose it, like it's happening, but you're going to be able to drive in that way. You can be like, okay, I can like alter this or alter that. Like I've definitely been through some level changes myself, where I'm like, I came out the other side of it and kind of been like, you know what though, Michelle, like you know, sometimes you talk about your feelings too much with people who don't want to hear them, you know, right? Like, or just like that person's not really into like doing like sad emo stuff with you, you know, right? The change that I've done like for myself, which is not any kind of hidden message for you or anything, or not that I know of, but that is the example that came up. Anyway, that's what a Death level change can do. And you'll have control over how you handle the fallout, even though like you don't have control over the change. And where it takes you to, this Three of Cups, I wanted to pull a backup on that. That Three of Cups, that's like this abundance and this celebration with other people. Like this is really, really positive, even if it would have not been your choice in the beginning. That's all I want to say about it. Thanks for asking, Spooky.
So ages ago, when I first met Spooky and started to talk offline of YouTube, I actually did a reading for her. And the deck, and I think I let her pick one, and it was the Activation Oracle Sacred Geometry, which is not one I use a lot. And I think I ended up sending it to her. I bought her one. So I was shuffling as you were doing her reading, and I got magic. And the frequency of magic supports our intrinsic ability to grow and expand beyond this moment, to move towards possibilities, expressions that are grand, profound, so we can imagine all that is required is our belief and manifestation. So I kind of feel like that just confirms everything Michelle just told you. And I grabbed this deck only because I had used it with her before, and she liked it so much I sent it to her.
Oh, sweet. It was really a pretty card. All right, Keats. Keats wanted one on new projects. So I pulled one. Why don't you pull it back up, Jill, for Keats? Spooky's using that card as a bookmark. Yeah, Spooky's using that card as a bookmark. Computation reality right now. That's nice. Sync. I love that. Sync. All right, Keats, I got the Four of Wands for you. So like new projects, you always have a lot of new projects, and I'm in a lot of them, so I love it. But like if there's something really specific that you're thinking about when you you always have like all burners are going for you. You've got one of those big. Your creative life is one of those big industrial stoves, and you've got pots on back burners, side burners, middle burners, front burners.
Pickling.
And I mean that it's great. It's awesome the way you do. But if this is about some one pot in particular, or I feel like it's about several that kind of go together, like you're really at home with these new projects. Like this is home for you. So like, I think that now probably is like this really good time. You see all those wands out solidly in the ground. Wands are fire. I've been talking about this actually a lot. Wands are fire, but like fire, even though it does its own thing and it burns in its own, in its own way, and you can't totally control what a fire is. And this, Keats, you're an outdoor guy. And the way you set logs when you go to set a fire, you can give that fire structure, and fours are about structure, right? So like if you need a tall fire to go between the pine trees so you don't set the branches on fire or whatever, you can set the logs in such a way to encourage it to have a tall skinny fire. You can have a flat round fire in the ground if you don't want it to go too high. Different kinds of wood burn at different types of heat. So like to plant wands like this, to get this security with this, like something's really digging in. And knowing you personally, I know that that's not always how you do things, but I think you want to right now. And I think you're going to feel really at home. And so my advice right now with your new projects, this is super. I mean, like there's a structure, but that doesn't have to take away from your creativity at all. If you set up your root, think of like setting your logs to make the kind of fire that you want to see, you're going to get that. And it's going to be something that lasts for a long time for you, but it takes no excitement away from things that you're doing. So that's my read.
So I'm going with like, since I started Michelle's class, almost kind of finished it. When I've been working with tarot now, I've been just working with the major arcanas, because I really like that. And I actually pulled the devil for you, Keats. And I don't look at it as bad. It doesn't feel like, I know some people are like, oh my God, devil. But I just feel like whatever your project is, you're going to go deep into that underworld to like that. You need to get into those weird spots. You need to get weird, Keats. That's what I'm hearing. You just need to get weird, down and dirty, and really explore those taboos and all that stuff that we always keep kind of at the surface. We kind of talk about, but I feel like the devil is calling you to dance right now, my friend. And it doesn't feel bad. And actually, look, he's got fire. He's holding fire.
Nice.
But yeah, I really like that. I feel like the devil is where you need to go. You need to like go to those dark places that we keep hidden, and you need to kind of bring them out in this project. This is where they're meant to grow, and then no longer be dark and hidden and secretive. You're going to kind of make it you'll like kind of neutralize it in a way. It's gonna just be your truth, pretty much. I don't know if that makes sense. This is about or certain. It is getting weird. Haha, good. I'm glad it's getting weird. Keats, it's supposed to.
Yeah, well, I love that. It's about a certain writing project, and he's just saying it's getting weird. And so, like, yeah, I don't know, root it, like, set it up to go in the direction you'd most like it to go, and then let it burn. That's my that's my suggestion from that 4 of Wands.
And embrace the
Awesome.
weird. Lean into the weird.
Yeah.
All right, John.
So I pulled
next, Michelle.
Yeah. So I pulled. Here's up. I got the same one. I got the same 4 of Wands. So I'm gonna shuffle it again. I shuffled it, but I'm gonna shuffle it again. Yeah. Oh, well, that is happy home card, John. That is the happy home card. So maybe it's just really about enjoying like your happy home. You know, hopefully, I know you. I think I'm pretty sure you have a happy home life in your home, in your personal home. I don't know if you're going to somebody else's home where things are not as not quite as happy, but that's the card you got. I'm gonna pull one more though, since we got those 2 in a row, and Jill's gonna pull you a backup card, I think. Let's see. This is for John. Let's see it again. One more time. Ah, I got this card again too. I don't know what's going on, but happy home. Lots of abundance there, John. So, and you see me
but
shuffling.
I feel like
what did you get?
The cards are good right now because the energy with the new moon was such a great energy. Hold on, I'm still shuffling because I was listening to what you were saying. I actually went to my energy oracle deck. So I was trying to. Oh yeah, I actually still have them. I did take one card down. So I got need another one because I don't really love that one. When I'm looking at, so the first card I got was the 4th chakra Archangel Raphael. When I see this, all I think of, John, is your heart. You got the biggest heart in the world. So like, that's why you have such a happy family. Cause you know, you're so open and giving with, and Jesus Christ, how many candles did you light for me? I got the sister-in-law. It should be fun. I just feel in, you know, Raphael, like Archangel Raphael, is about healing and stuff. Your presence and your energy really just is something that people need and love to be around. Like, because you are, like I said to Michelle one time, he's like the nicest person on YouTube. Like, how could anyone not like him? And the next one I got was Victory. And I find this very interesting. There's something, it's almost like, you know, you got this happy home. Maybe the victory is you're going to survive today. Because I think I saw your comment when you said just self-righteous sister-in-law should be fun. You're going to have victory. I think it's going to be okay. Like, you're always going to rise above that bullshit. And I'm just feeling like today something's going to happen and you're going to like put her, I don't want to say put her in her place, but you're going to say something that's going to leave her almost speechless. And there's going to be nothing. I don't know. I'm just feeling that way. Like, you know, because I don't feel like there's victory. Like, there's nothing you're battling except for, you know, there's no big battles in your life right now that this is just kind of talking about today. Like, you're going to be successful. If your sister-in-law's a pain in the ass, you're going to outsmart her. Because you are the nicest person and you got a good heart. Because that's the thing with you. Your intentions are never bad. You're never trying to hurt anyone. And that's the biggest thing. So we'll have to talk tomorrow.
Like, Jonathan is really is like such a sweet, supportive person. And you know what though? But like, don't underestimate him. He's snarky AF. Okay, that's a sarcastic fucker in there too. Okay.
once you've crossed him though, it's like there is no. It's not that you don't get the kindness, but it's the different side. And one thing I will say about John's side too that I respect is someone had done something on a live stream. And I remember him saying he wasn't going to talk about it till that person was there. Because he has integrity. He wasn't going to talk shit about someone. And as soon as that person was there, he called it out. And that's what I mean about just integrity. Like, you know, even when like someone's an asshole, he's not going to roast them behind their backs. He's just going to call it to their face. And what are you going to do?
It seems like maybe with your sister-in-law today, it's going to be more like you say something like just so easy, like so simple, like, oh, that's
Yeah.
cool, huh? Or like, oh, okay. Like it's just something like that where it's like, oh, yeah, I've heard that before from Alex Jones or like whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's going to be
Well,
really
so
like leave her dumbstruck where she's not going to know what to do with herself and kind of put her
I
in her
could see
place for
that
the day.
too. I kind of see that
And yes,
too,
make sure you tell
actually.
Mrs. Jonaside that we all said hello and happy Thanksgiving
Yeah.
too.
Hello, Mrs. Jonathan. Hello,
We love
hello.
Renee. One of our favorite couples.
What's up with the moon? Or the new
Hmm?
moon, Jill. What's going on with the new moon? The new
Oh, so
moon. You've been
this is
talking about that a lot. What's there?
well, I was
You're
excited
welcome,
because it was in my
Jonathan.
sign of Sagittarius. Because we're moving into
Uh-huh.
Sagittarius season, people. It's on Sagittarius bitches. I love to, even though that's just my sun sign, I love to just be like, it's my birthday month. So most people know I've been sick and this year has sucked for me, right? But I'm at the end of this like journey of illness and all that. So most people I think saw the quick video I posted on Facebook just talking about like, there's an astrologer that I follow on YouTube that always gives a great little blurb about what's going on. And I hadn't listened to her in a while. And this weekend I just happened to, and it was all about the new moon in Sagittarius and setting intentions. And I was like, this is what I need right now. Oh my fucking God. And and it's funny because I almost like rituals, for instance, is something when I first started learning about this stuff, I always because I need a recipe. I need a step by step. If I'm gonna do something in the beginning, you needed to lay it out for me. You put up the altar, you light a candle. I'm not as rigid anymore. It's something I've learned. I almost made a video about what my ritual was because it wasn't anything crazy. But I will say there are certain rituals, depending on if you're working with deities or something, that is a little bit more structured. Like there's a way that you're supposed to connect with them. But for like a full moon or a new moon, it's really your own. And that's something I've learned. Like it's whatever I want it to be. It's not written, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I wrote down intentions for because the energy has been so heavy and we were in eclipse season and all that stuff. And it's been heavy for me, right? Like a lot of struggles and stuff. And this is so light. And we got Jupiter playing into it too, which makes it bigger and more abundant. So this is such a great energy. That's why I was excited to do the live stream today. Cause I'm like, energy is going to be good. It's going to be just like whatever. So and also just on a side note too, the holidays I always miss my mom. Like I sent Michelle a picture yesterday of a present she had given me that every year when I put it up, it's almost like a ritual. When I do it, I have make sure no one's home, and I had my ring on for her yesterday, and so I last night sat down and wrote out my intentions, and this is what I want people to know. Like, I had an idea of what I was going to do, but as I was doing it, it changed. I thought I was going to burn my intentions. And then I said, no, I'm not. I'm actually going to rip out this piece of paper, fold it up, and put it away somewhere. And when the time is right, I'll find it and see how I did with my intentions. Did I stick with them? Like, where was I successful? Where wasn't I successful? And that's what I mean about like you think it's going to be one way, but when you're in it you'll just know. I'm like, no, I'm not burning this, I'm keeping this because I need to see this again. So I folded it up and it's put away in a box that I don't go to very often, and when the time is right, I'll find it and I'll open it up and read it, and it'll be interesting to see. And a lot of it for me is just change, healthy
Oh, it's a good
change.
idea.
Yeah, like that's what I mean about that's what I've learned. Didn't have to be when I'm doing releases, I always burn that. Like if I'm for doing forgiveness or letting go, I burn that shit because I want that stuff gone. But I always do like a little research about like I don't know everything about the moons.
Yeah.
And I found a cool little invocation for it online. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep that because I kind of build up my ritual as I go. So I found this cool new moon invocation that I liked. So I screenshotted it, and I also, so I pulled, so I have a deck that's called a Moonology deck. That's what I use for my full moon and new moon readings. And I literally, this was my card. A new start is coming, new moon. I was like, how perfect is that right now? Like, it's telling me like I am ending a chapter and starting a new one. Then I pulled the tarot card and I got this guy whose name I'm going to say wrong. The hermaphrodite, whatever he is, and he is the keeper of what, religion and knowledge and stuff. And that is where I want to go. Like, I want to continue learning. Like, I haven't been able to do readings or anything for so long. And I am so eager to get back into that and expand on my practices. I would love to grow client lists. Like, I have, like, oh, I really want to make this more a part of my life than I have in the past. And like, this was just something stupid. I bought it because I was talking about retail therapy, my feelings. So I got this little thing that you can put your cards on, and I got this crystal skull, and I just felt like he needed to be here, and I had to clear quartz. Like, I just went with my gut, and I haven't done that in so long. And that's what this new moon was all about, was setting what do you want in your life. And the other thing that I found on Facebook, and once again, it was just a random search, like on Facebook. I came across it and I'm like, this, it just resonated. So I saved it, right? And I took parts of this. I think I saved it. I think I might have shared it, but it was all about why am I here? What is this life about? What is my purpose? And that's what Sagittarius, like, a Sagittarius wants to know. We want to know everything because we're know-it-alls, but we're also about wanting to know about ancient stuff and everything. We're always knowledge seekers, and that really resonated with me. And then the other one is that under this moon cycle, we become a wise sage, and we love to hold knowledge and learn anew. And it's said to look where Sagittarius is in your chart at 1 degree. And mine's in my 11th house. So I did some reading on that, and it made so much sense because that's where you were supposed to start your intentions. And it's exactly where I needed to be. So that's what I, in the video that I did, I really was just trying to encourage people, like, if you want to make changes, this is the time. Like, put it out there, because change is hard, and like, things can seem overwhelming, but if you don't put intent, it's never going to happen. You're never going to I don't want to be like, oh, we're going to manifest, we're going to be like The Secret. But if you want something to happen in your life, you got to put it out to the universe, and you have to take a step. And that's I need adult supervision. Yes, you do, CW. And that's what it really was for me, was just all about change. Because I finally have gotten over this illness that has taken over my life for just about a year. And now it's time to make changes. Like I was telling Michelle, like, as I was thinking about this, I was craving vegetables. Like, I would have eaten a bag of carrots if I had it in my house. And that's what, like, my body and the universe was telling me, like, it's time for all this. And I'm going back to work on Monday, and it's like, no more of these 13-hour days. And it's like, I am setting the intent, like, I am going to have a start and stop time. I am going to meditate. Like, will I be perfect? No. But I'm putting the intent that I am going to try to my highest and best to put these things in motion in my life. The other one too was just being honest with myself and others and being who I am. The other thing that people are going to think this is funny, I want to figure out what kind of witch I am. I'm not an earth witch. Like my friend Carrie, who I love to death, she knows there's so many types. I'm like, I am not the earth witch. There's no earth in my chart. Like, talking about cooking, herbs, like, I have no idea. I can't grow shit. It's like, I want to figure out what kind of witch I am. That's like one of my things. So that is an intent that I have too. Like, I kind of know that I come from a long line of them. My nana was one, but what kind are we? So that is part of my intent too. I want to figure out who I am, if that makes sense. So with the ritual,
I
like
love it.
pulled the
Yeah.
I pulled I pulled my cards, I reflected on it all, and I always do it in silence or having soft music. I don't have TV shows or anything playing in like my headphones. My space has to be not perfect, but I can't have clutter because I can't think if there's clutter. Then I did go outside, and unfortunately I couldn't see the moon. It was cloudy. And now that it's cold out, I couldn't stay out there as long as I'd like to. But I went outside, I had my paper of intent, and I had my little invocation. So I did that. Read my intentions. And then I always do something that it's off the cuff. It's like whatever comes to me. It's not anything written down. And that's what I mean about like, it doesn't have to be, it's your own. And then I just said what I wanted to release to the universe, thank the universe, thanked everyone, sat outside. Then I was freezing. I'm like, okay, I feel like I can go inside. And I folded up my thing, put it away, but I left out my cards because I feel like I need to have these out to look at them to remind me of what I wanted to do this
I
time
love
around. So
I love using cards for like an altar, which is kind of what you have there. So
mhm.
I just want to say a couple of things and then we'll wrap up. It's been like, thanks for everybody who's hung around today. And it makes this stream really difficult, but we've done a good job today, and I appreciate we had did some readings today. But like you have your stuff up there on your altar, and you're pulling your cards, and you're spending time with yourself. I think that's so much about what things like this are for, is us like turning everything off, pulling some cards, thinking about ourselves, like just getting into like our own bodies and our own thoughts, and not being so amputated in a way out into the rest of the world. And so like I don't feel like you need to believe in any woo or anything at all to just recognize that like pretty cards and pretty rocks and making altars and setting intentions and like spending time with yourself, your journal, and just like grounding inside of like who you are and what you want to put into the world is hugely important, and it will help your health. It will help your physical health. That's a lot too of what Jill is talking about. No more 13-hour days. No more like putting, your own health out to the side. Like you've been through a lot this year with that, and you've definitely, you're you're like, I'm not doing that anymore. And experiences like you've had this year too, Jill, they refocus on like what's like there's too much in your life that's important to lose. Like you can't afford to lose any of that, and you can't afford to lose that time, and I don't think any of us can. And so like hopefully today we are, whether you're spending today with people you care about, people you wish you didn't have to spend time with, a mixture of both, I think is how
Alone.
spend it. Yeah, I'm spending the day with myself, and I'm in a place where I have around me that are inviting me to wonderful things. And I'm like, I think I'm staying in though. I think I'm just going to hang out with myself today. So whatever y'all are doing today, I really hope it makes you healthier and stronger and happier in life. So on that.
Yeah, happy
I guess
Thanksgiving
we'll
to everyone. Thanks
goodbye.
for all of our favorite people showing up today too. I love when our friends are here. It makes it so much more fun.
Me too. All right. Everybody, take care.
Bye, guys.